Hello and welcome to the shop. I just got back from a whirlwind trip around the city. I got a phone call from a lady who's been a pen customer of mine for quite some time, and I discontinued taking custom orders because of what I'm about to tell you. But this lady has been a fantastic customer of mine. She's been so good to me over the years, and she needed a colored pencil pen. So I'm going to make a couple of colored pencil blanks, and I've already made them in another video, but I'm going to go through and just kind of make 4 of them tonight, and hopefully at least one of them turns into an incredible pen. But what I was alluding to a while ago is about the whirlwind trip and not taking custom orders. It seems like when I don't have a lot of time in my shop, and when I take custom orders, I end up not having a pen kit or needing a special blank, or in this case, not having the proper size drill bit to drill the holes in my blanks so that I can insert the colored pencils. So I took off to my local hardware store. I got there as they were locking the door. Then I had to turn around and drive all the way across to the other end of town to another hardware store where I was able to get this drill bit. So I lost about an hour and 15 minutes running around getting this. That wouldn't normally be that bad, except I gotta have these done by Thursday, and this is Tuesday. So she's gonna pick them up Thursday morning. So tonight I'm gonna try to make the 4 blanks and get them glued up so they can lay here on the table and dry. And then tomorrow night I'm gonna try to turn all 4 of them in hopes of getting one awesome one out of the batch, because the colored pencil blanks, you might remember from my videos, were a bit finicky and I had a lot of repairs to do. Well, I'm hoping to turn one with no repairs. It'd be great if I could turn 2 or 3 or 4. Then I'll let her pick her favorite one, and the others I can take to a show later in November. But that's a real long story. I got way off on a tangent. I hope you don't mind. I'm going to go ahead now, and I'm going to make 4 colored pencil blanks. So come on along, and I'll show you how it goes. I'm going to start out with 4 maple blanks. These are a little shy of 3/4 of an inch. I prefer a 3/4 inch blank, but these are what I had handy, so they're going to have to do. And I'm just going to basically take a 19/64 inch drill bit and randomly drill holes through each of the blanks. Just to make this interesting, I've decided to take one of the blanks and cock it at a little bit of an angle in my vise and attempt to drill some holes down through it at an angle. I've never done that before, but I think it might produce a neat effect. So let's see how that works. I drilled 3 holes. I've got the first one going at an angle like this, then one going at an angle like this, and then one coming at an angle like this. Now I think I'll come back and I'll pop one here and one here, just to kind of mix it up a little bit. I had turned the camera off, but what I did is I came back and I drilled a hole right here. I have a hole going this way and one going this way, and I drilled just behind them, so I'm a little off center as you can see, which will give a neat effect, but none of the holes cross, so that's going to be really cool. The last blank, I'm just going to go ahead and drill the holes randomly like I did the first 2, and we'll see how it turns out. I decided to sort of Swiss cheese this one. I just came in from every angle, including from the corners. I think it's going to look pretty cool. I hope it holds together. I really think it'll be neat. So I'm going to go now and get some colored pencils glued in. I've got all of my supplies gathered up, and I just want to start gluing pencils into blanks. Let's get a couple of these out of the way. I'm going to start out with this Swiss cheese one because it looks kind of cool. I'm going to stick with mostly bright colors. We'll start off with an orange one here. Let's see. Just go right through this way here. Actually, what I want to do is I'm going to just rough them up just a little bit before I glue them in. And not enough to take the orange off because I want the color on there, but enough to give the glue a little something better to stick to. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and just randomly take bright colors. It's going to look like a sea urchin or a porcupine or something when I get done. It's going to be ugly, but it'll turn out pretty in the end. Let that come on through. There we go. How about we get us a pink one? I tell you what. Whoops, I'm getting glue everywhere. That's all right. This stuff washes off. I'm going to go on down the blank a little ways. Put this pink one in at a diagonal. I think I'll take a little light blue up here. That looks neat. And you know what I'm forgetting to do? I'm forgetting to sand these. Bob. All right. We'll get the last couple sanded. Get a red one, and I got a purple one here too. That purple one would be great at the bottom. And I forgot to sand again. This is what happens when you get in a hurry. It's not good to be in a hurry. So I'm a little frustrated about that, but what I'm going to do is stop here in a second once I drop everything. And I'll sand my pencils so that way I don't have to deal with this anymore. It's done and I can just go ahead and glue. Look at that thing. Is that wild or what? Like I said, I'm going to go ahead and stop. I'm going to sand up or rough up the rest of my pencils. I have a couple of small nubs from last time I did this. I'll get those roughed up, and then I'm just going to get them inserted into the other blanks. I'll come back when everything is set up and drying and show you what they look like. Here's a quick shot of my blanks. I've got 3 of them glued up and drying. The 4th one I haven't done anything to yet because I've got all of my pencils in use and I need them to dry a little bit, and then I'll take just a flush cut saw, cut them off, glue that one up, and it can dry while I'm working on getting the rest of them tubed and glued up and ready to go. I've got all 4 of my blanks glued up and drying. They look a little rough right now, but trust me, once we get to turning them, they'll really perk up. I'm going to let them sit overnight and get completely dry because that wood glue, it'll set up in about 20 minutes, but really it's not like CA. I can't take it straight to the lathe. So tomorrow night I'll come out, I'll cut them to size, I'll tube them, trim them, get them on the lathe, and we'll turn as many of them as possible. My blanks have all dried. I let them sit overnight, so I'm fairly satisfied that the glue is dry. And what I want to do now is I want to mark them for tubes so that I can get them cut and tubed. And what I'm going to do is keep an eye. See, you've got a blue one here and a red one here. I want to try to come right between those whenever I cut. Now the problem is I'm going to be fairly close to both of them. That makes me a bit nervous because when you get down close to the end, they tend to cut loose and break free. So I'm really going to kind of study this blank and look for the best way to cut it. And truthfully, I should have thought about this early on and left a bigger gap there because I don't see a better way. So we're going to cut it there, and I'm going to call this blank 1, and I'll mark it 1 on both sides. Here's blank 2, and I've got the same dilemma. You can see that these 2 are fairly close to one another. So we're just going to have to take a chance, and we're going to cut through there. And this is blank 2 and blank 2. This is the blank that goes at a diagonal. That's going to pose an even more special problem. You see, sometimes it pays to think about these things before you do them. And I got in a hurry to get these done because I needed them quickly. I didn't put the proper thought into them, and I'm paying the price now. What I think I'm going to have to do, though, is I think I'm going to have to cut right across this one and just take a chance. So I'll have hopefully a purple below and a purple above the center band of the pin. And this will be number 3. Number 4. Wow. Let's try to cut right through here. 4 and 4. I'm not super happy about these because I didn't put any thought into them up front. So that's definitely something to focus on when you make yours. I'm going to go ahead now and get these cut. And I'm going to probably cut them by hand. And the reason why is my miter saw has a much finer kerf than my bandsaw. So if I cut them by hand, I can control and try to center as best as possible between the two halves. So let me get that saw out. I'm going to go ahead and get these cut, and I'll get them drilled. And I won't film that. There's nothing fancy to that. I'm just going to cut, in the center of these 2 pencils, and then I'm going to drill from the center out my holes. They'll be 7 millimeters, and get the tubes glued in there. And once the tubes are all glued up and the pins are ready to go, I'll come back and show you the turning on the lathe. There's one other thing we need to be careful of, and that is, look at this. I've got a colored pencil right at the bottom of this section of the pin, cap or bottom section of the pin. The top is okay. This one's okay. This one will be okay. You've got to be careful of this. The rest of them look like they're going to be fine. But this is going to be tricky because if this pencil is right at the, you see what I mean? I've got my tube here, and it's right at the bottom of the tube. There's no way I can turn that down to a tube and have it work. So what I think I'm going to do is I think I'm going to take a closer look at this one and see if possibly I can cut it somewhere differently and maybe make this the center and this the center, rotate the blank around. I don't think grain will be as important on these pencils or pins. So let me think on this, and I'll come back and show you what I come up with. Here's what I came up with on blank 4. If I cut the blank here and here, I'm going to end up losing this pink pencil. So I'll cut as close to it as possible, and then I can make this half of the blank, and I can make this half of the blank, and I think it'll still look pretty darn decent. You'll have 3 pencils at the bottom, 3 pencils at the top. I just don't see how I can make it work with the pink one. So I'm going to cut this section out, and I'm going to cut as close to it as possible so that I preserve as much of the top and bottom as possible. And I think that's going to work much better for me. You still have one on the diagonal on the top section and the bottom section of the pin. So let me get my miter saw and get these cut out. Okay, I believe using that hand miter saw was the right decision. Take a look at blank number 3. On the left side, you see the little black line there. On the right side, you see the black line. That blade is so thin that it cut right down the center of the marker line and left a marker on both sides. So I lost the least amount I could possibly lose of this blank. I'm fairly happy because I do have a little gap from the marker. See the little gap? So as long as I keep the tubes close to the center, I should have enough meat to make these blanks work. I did remove the center pencil. I'm going to hang on to this because, I'm sitting here thinking in the future I may try to make a center ring. I won't do it for these pins, but that would make one heck of a cool center ring if I can pull it off. So it'll be a nice little experiment. So I'm going to hang on to that, but I'll move this blank together. I don't think you'll notice the loss of grain in there. I think it'll be just fine. But at this point, I'm ready to take these over to the drill press, get them tubed, and I'll come back whenever I've got them tubed, trimmed, and on the lathe. If I run into any problems or have to overcome any obstacles, I'll stop and film that so you guys can see what I did. But at this point, I'm not anticipating anything. I told you that I would come back and update if there were any problems, and there were a couple of problems, but they were really, really insignificant. If you take a look at this blank, you can see the pencil. This was one where the pencil went in at an angle. It kind of pushed the lead out. I don't really consider that to be a problem. What I'll do is I'll push it all the way out so that the tube can go in, and I'll put some CA glue on there, and that'll solidify it, and then the outside part I can just cut off before I start turning. Same thing happened to this one on a diagonal. It just forced the pencil lead out. So once again, I'll put the tube in there, and then I'll push that all the way in. It looks like I did it on the orange one too a little bit, but I'll push that all the way in, and then each one of these, before I do anything else, I'll glue my tubes in, and then each one of them will get a drop of thin CA glue all the way around the pencil, and what that'll do is that'll help glue the lead to the pencil. It'll soak into the grain, it'll help glue the lead in, and it'll also help glue the pencil tighter. If there's any gaps from the wood glue, it'll help glue it tighter into the blank. So we're going to get our tubes glued in, and then we'll come back and correct those minor issues. All of the tubes are drilled into my blanks, and what I want to do now, as I put the tube in, I pushed the pencil lead all the way in till it touched the tube. Now I'm just going to take a little thin CA and just see how it soaks right in. Put some on each of the pencils. Just let it soak in. Ooh, this stuff's pretty runny, so you got to be careful. But it'll soak in like water, and it'll help to seal. I'm going to make a little bit of a mess here, but it'll help to seal the lead inside of the pencil, and it'll help to seal the pencil to the blank, and it'll stiffen up the pencil fibers, which will help them turn easier. While I'm turning, I'll periodically stop and add a drop of glue to each of these, say after I true it up and then after I turn it down a little bit, so 2, maybe 3 times during the turning process to make sure that my pencils and the leads stay put. I'm going to hit this with a little bit of activator and go on to the next one. I've got all of my blanks barrel trimmed, and they trimmed out really nice. These 3 I've got up on end, and I'll show you why. Notice the pencil lead right there, that's where I went through at a diagonal. I want to work on that a little bit. This one here had a little chip out. It's out toward the outside of the blank, so I don't think it'll hurt anything, but we're still going to work on it. Those 2 I'll apply some thin CA to. This one lost a little chunk, so what we'll do is we'll put some medium CA in there. So that's what I'm going to do right now, is I'm just going to basically fill this with medium CA. I'm just going to drill it down in there, trying not to get it inside of the tube. I'm going to let it set and dry. These 2, like I said, I'll use a little thin CA because really, actually I think I'll use thin on this one. And I'm just going to basically put it in there and let it just sort of soak in. And I think I will use a medium CA on the other one. Actually, I think I'll I think I will use a little medium CA on there. It looks like it's a little bit more of a chip out than I expected. And I'll put a little medium on here like this. I'll just kind of smear it in, and out here on the end I'll attempt to build it up. And I'm going to let those set for a little bit. I'm not going to hit them with the accelerator right away, especially these 2 because the medium is thick. So I'm going to let it just sort of sit there and soak in. What I'm going to do is go ahead, I'll start turning this blank, which turned out okay. And then when I'm done turning that one, these should be plenty dry. I'll go ahead and hit them with the barrel trimmer one more time, just tap them to take the CA down and smooth everything down, and they'll be good to go and ready to turn. I've got the first blank on the lathe, and I'm ready to start truing it up. I don't think I'll do a lot of filming of the turning. I may go ahead and show truing it up, and then I'll get to the point where I stop and put another coat of thin CA on the pencils, and then I'll come back once I've got it turned down to the bushings. And the reason why is I've got 4 of these to turn, and I'd like to show a little bit of each of them. If there are any problems or they require any fixes during the turning, I will definitely stop, explain, and walk through those. So let me go ahead and get this thing trued up. got the blanks trued up, and what I want to do now is go ahead and just apply a little more CA. You can start to see some of the fibers of the pencils, and I just want to make sure everything stays together. The thin CA is super runny. You can tell I've got it all over my Rockler dust collector. I don't worry too much about that. At some point I'll put a little deactivator on there and scrape it off, or I'll sand it off. One or the other. It won't really matter. Let me give it a second to dry, and then I'm going to hit it with a shot of activator just to make sure it finishes drying throughout, and we'll get back to turning. I hit it with the activator, and you can kind of see where it bubbles up. That's just the glue actually boiling. So it didn't happen as much on the front blank. That one must have been almost dry. This one had some wet spots back here, but that's all right. I'm going to go ahead and we'll just turn those right off and see what we come up with. This blank turned out really nice. I couldn't be happier. I'm done with the tools. I'm ready to hit it with the sandpaper. I got one little rough spot right there, but I think with my 120 sandpaper, that'll come right out, and I don't really see that there should be any problems with this blank. I'm going to go ahead and get it sanded down and get it finished. Then we'll come back and show you the start of the next one. The first pin has been turned, sanded, and polished. I'm going to go press this into a kit and get started turning the other one. I'll show you what all the pins look like at the very end. Well, I thought I had the camera on, but I guess I had it off. I'm going to call it on this second blank, and I'll tell you why. Let me pull it off the lathe and show you. I'm truing up the first half, and you'll remember that I kind of had to glue it because a piece was missing right there. Well, it kind of looks bad. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to call it quits on this one. I'll lay this blank aside, and we can make a keychain out of it in a future video possibly. So I'm going to go ahead and get blank number 3. I've got blank number 3 chucked up. I had a little repair on the end of the front blank. It wasn't anything major, just a little rough area. And then on the back blank, you'll remember I had the angled purple pencil, so I put some glue on there to kind of solidify that. Not sure how this is going to turn because I'm right on the edge with that pencil. But we're going to go ahead and give this one a try. So we've got one so far. Let's hope we can get 3 out of this batch. I think we may have pulled a second one out of the fire. This one's looking pretty good. With the diagonal ones, it kind of gives everything a little weird shape, which truthfully I think is really kind of cool. I'm going to go ahead. I had to put a little CA on that one because it got kind of thin. But I'm going to go ahead and sand these down, and I think we're going to get a pin out of these. I've got 5 coats of thin CA and 2 coats of medium put on these blanks. They look really nice. Something I've been doing recently is after I get my blanks CA'd, I put them back with the regular bushings or the standard bushings that I turn them with, and I micro mesh them with those bushings because sometimes you get a little glue buildup right around the end. This lets you take that glue buildup off and get it right back down to the level of the bushings so you get the best possible fit for your pen. What you saw there is this little purple piece of lead actually separated. It was stuck to the bushing when I separated the bushing from the blank. I took a razor knife and carefully trimmed it off the bushing, put a dot of CA in there, down inside of the pencil, and just touched it right in. The reason why I did that is that's one of the ones that goes at an angle. See, it went through the blank like this, so there was very little on the back side of the lead, and it was a little thicker on the front, but it made a nice little fix, and when I micro mesh it, you'll never be able to tell. Got the 4th blank chucked up. I'm waiting to turn until my grinder stops. I just sharpened my tool. I've been sharpening it before each blank because I don't want to catch on these. I want to cut. So as soon as the grinder finishes winding down, because it tends to vibrate the table a little bit, I'll get this fired up and get to turning blank 4. I'm really happy with this blank too. I think it's going to be really nice once sanded. One tiny problem, the lead broke up in this yellow. Didn't hurt the pencil, just the lead. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this yellow pencil. I'm going to take my razor knife and carve it down so I can get to the lead, cut off a piece of lead. We'll clean the lead out of here and we'll glue a new piece in. Once we sand it, you'll never know. First things first, let's see if we can pick the lead out of here. I'll go get a razor knife, that'll be a little easier. It's going to be a little more difficult to pick out because of the CA glue that I put on it, but if we just take our time and go really, really carefully after it, I think we can do it. Okay, we got a nice piece of lead here. Let's see if it'll fit. Here comes the tricky part. This is where we got to stick it in there, and I'm going to put just a little bit of CA glue in there, just a drop. Whoops. Okay, a little medium CA glue, and you're not going to believe this. There it is. Whew! It rolled off the lathe. I thought I lost it for a second. Okay, let me get the flat end. Okay, it's in there. Shot of accelerator. Get it on the other side. There we go. Make sure it dries. Now what I'm going to do is trim that off. You see the lead sticking out. I'll trim that off, and it doesn't have to be perfect. I'll get it close, and then we'll come back and we'll finish it up with sandpaper. What I'm trying to do here is be careful because I don't want to split it down into the pencil. Ooh, be careful, Bob. The CA glue down around the bottom of it's making it. I tell you what, there's a little bump there. It's not much. There we go, but I think if we just use sandpaper, I think we can clean that right up. All right, I'm going to sand this, and you'll never know I repaired it. I believe it was Meatloaf who sang 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Well, RJBWoodturner says 3 out of 4 ain't bad. I was able to get 3 of the 4 pins to turn. I think they turned out fantastic. Here's the one that had the yellow lead pop out, and I replaced it. See if I can get that to focus a little better for you. There we go. Well, almost. Take a look at that. Tell me which side was the lead I replaced. You can't do it. It's amazing if you just take a little bit of time how nice you can make these pins look. I'm very happy with all 3 of these, and the person who is coming to buy them needs one by tomorrow night, so she now has 3 to choose from. She can pick her favorite, and I know that it will probably be difficult because they all 3 look amazing. Wow, what a whirlwind. Taking a phone call yesterday, hopping in the car to go get a drill bit, coming back, making the blanks, tonight turning them, making 4 blanks to hedge my bets because I really just needed 1 pin, but being able to come out of that with 3 amazing pins. And these are difficult to turn too because the wood is so soft and the lead in those colored pencils wants to pop out. I couldn't be happier. I think they turned out great. The lady who needs one needs it tomorrow. She'll be coming by tomorrow to pick one out, and now she has 3 to choose from. So my job is done. Her job is just begun. It's going to be tough to pick her favorite one because they all look beautiful. I'd really like to thank you guys for joining me. This was just a thrown together whirlwind of a video. I had a great time doing it, even though it was a little bit stressful. I want you to know that you are always welcome in my shop. Come back and see me again real soon. Have a great evening, guys.